Alright, good evening. Today is Saturday, July the 23rd in the year 2011, and this is episode 6 of the Mobuku Chronicles. And I'm going to continue on with what I left off last time, which was to continue to talk about the consequences of basing our daily intake on animal protein, meaning meat and chicken and eggs and fish and pork. So last time I did mainly ecological and economic and environmental consequences. Now we turn to the more personal consequences, and I think I touched on these in earlier episodes to some degree, but I didn't go into it in any great detail. So here we go. Now this is again from John Robbins' book Diet for a New America, which came out in 1989, and this is a publication that is an excerpt from it called Realities 1989. And as I said earlier, the trends that he talks about, and these are all statistics that he gathered in his research for the book, and the original citations for all this stuff is in the book. So if you want the citations, you'd have to go to get the book. And I said then that although this database that he put together was from 1989, it was only out of date in the sense that the trends that have been set in motion have increased since that time. So now when we turn to the medical consequences of the animal protein-based diet, he says here, how frequently a heart attack strikes in the US. In 1989 it was every 25 seconds. In 2003 it's every 20 seconds, because I did some research over the last day or so to get some updated data on these kinds of things. How frequently a heart attack kills in the United States. In 1989, it was every 45 seconds. In 2003, which was the latest data I could get data, it was 34 seconds. So as I said, the trends are definitely accelerating. Risk of death from heart attack by the average American man is 50%. The risk of death from heart attack by average American vegetarian man, 4%. No, 15%. Risk of death from heart attack by an average American pure vegetarian, 4%. So the fact is that when we go from a dietary intake on a daily basis of eating meat and etc., then and we switch over to eating whole grains and vegetables, our risk of having a heart attack drops to pretty much zero. You're not going to get one. And so this talks about cholesterol and the major source of saturated fat and cholesterol. But one thing he did not mention that does play a role in heart problems is sugar. Okay, and the consumption of sugar is enormous, and a lot of it is hidden. You know, it doesn't. It's hidden in foods, so to speak. Sugar laced in foods, and people really don't have any awareness of how much sugar they're taking in. And it turns out to be about 21 teaspoonfuls of sugar a day. Okay, now my latest stat that I have is that in 1900 the average American person ate 4 pounds per sugar per person per year. And in 1985, which is the latest I looked at it, I couldn't find it today, that kind of stuff, was 125 pounds of sugar per person per year. So, and that sugar definitely plays a major role in heart problems because it turns to fat in the body. You know, in terms of the metabolism of sugar, it turns to fat in the body. And okay, here's another one. Increased risk of breast cancer for women who eat meat daily compared to women who eat meat less than once a week. It's 4 times higher. Increased risk of breast cancer for women who eat eggs daily compared to women who eat eggs less than once a week. 3 times higher. Now, in terms of heart problems, in terms of what the data that I got today was that something like, no, I don't have that down there. What I do remember from what I read is that women have 50% of the people who have a heart attack, and remember it's every 20 seconds. Is that right? Is that what I said? Yeah, a heart attack every 20 seconds. Half of them are women. In other words, women actually more even die from heart problem than they do from breast cancer. And something like, I think it's 500,000 women die of breast cancer every year. I think that's what it is. Because I did a talk on female organ problems last month. Okay then, so increased risk of fatal ovarian cancer for women who eat eggs 3 or more times a week compared to women who eat eggs less than once a week, 3 times higher. So now diseases, there are many diseases which have been through medical research, scientific research, being linked to excessive protein consumption. And among them are osteoporosis and kidney failure, of which there are literally tens of millions of people. So in other words, osteoporosis is really not a problem with cancer, I mean calcium intake. That's not really the factor. It's actually a factor of kidney failure. That's really the cause of, well, kidney and kidney depletion. And in terms of kidney depletion, the depletion of the activity of the kidneys is caused by stagnations, which are the result of eating animal proteins, fats, and saturated fats, and so forth, plus a few other things, which I'll get into. And so that's osteoporosis and kidney failure. Then there's a whole list here: strokes, kidney stones, prostate cancer, cervical cancer, diabetes, peptic ulcers, hiatal hernias, gallstones, irritable bowel syndrome, heart disease, breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, stomach cancer, hyperglycemia, constipation, diverticulosis, hypertension, salmonellosis, osteoporosis, colon cancer, ovarian cancer, endometrial cancer, kidney disease, hemorrhoids, obesity, asthma, and trichinosis. Trichinosis is a parasite. It comes from pigs, I think. So here we have, now in terms of the costs, right now the sick care costs, you know, and everybody calls these health care costs. They have nothing to do with health care. I mean, nothing to do with it. Modern medicine, modern medical science, and the whole infrastructure that's built up around it has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with health care. Nothing at all. It's a sick care system, or as I like to put it, a disease treatment delivery system. And the average American, that's the average, you know, I mean per capita of all the 320 million people that live in America, the per capita cost of sick care is $8,000 per person per year. And the percentage of those sick care costs, of 50% of that cost is borne by 5% of the population. And the 5% of the population that bear the costs, 50% of sick care, which is 17% plus of the gross domestic product, are people who are 55 years and older. They bear the brunt. So, it is clear that the degenerative illnesses are long-standing, ongoing condition that gets worse as you get older if you continue to eat whole grains and, animal protein and quote-unquote meat and potato diet. So it behoves everybody to start eating the whole grain and vegetable diet when they're younger, because it's a lot easier to do it, for one thing. Starting eating a macrobiotic way of eating, a lot easier when you're younger and when you're quote-unquote relatively healthy in comparison. Now, that's only what I've just said now, all those things that I've talked about, the ecological, environmental, economic, and medical consequences, and the costs thereof, which are just gigantic. In terms of the environmental and ecological consequences. Not even talking about the sick care costs. That's only one side of the problem, because in macrobiotic thinking, we think in terms of yin and yang. Okay, so that's the principle behind macrobiotic eating habits and way of living is yin and yang. And one of the principles of yin and yang is that yin attracts yang and yang attracts yin. So therefore, if we take in something that's very yang, necessarily we are attracted to eating something very yin. This is just the way it is. And yin and yang is operative in everybody, without exception. In fact, it's operative in all phenomena of any description. So, and nobody can escape that. So if you don't understand or realize that yin and yang is operating in your day-to-day life as your way of thinking, way of eating, emotions, psychologically, as well as in the greater, in terms of the sun and the moon and the stars and day and night and hot and cold and all those, then you're simply at the mercy of, we are simply at the mercy of our lack of understanding and knowledge of yin and yang if we don't have that. So it very much behooves us to study the principles of yin and yang. Now, meat, animal protein generally, relative to the dynamics of yin and yang of the human organism, are very young. Therefore, and there's very good reasons for that. And I'm not going to give you a discourse on yin and yang. If you want that, you just buy one of my DVD that I have on the subject matter of yin and yang. And I have some material on it on my website and also in my book, The End of Medicine. But so that if we eat meat of any description, and also eggs, we are necessarily attracted to eating something which is more extreme on the yin end of the food spectrum of humanity. There's a food spectrum according to yin and yang for human beings. And that's in my book and it's on my website. So, if we eat meat every day, we are necessarily going to be attracted to eating extreme yin. And usually the first form of extreme yin that we take in is sugar.